turn. A world of wonders you'll soon learn. Big band swing with a gentle tone. In his company, you're never alone. The horns will croon, the rhythm will sway. Mark's got stories to brighten your day. A dash of charm, a pinch of wit. Manly Mark's podcast, this is it. Oh, Manly Mark, the man with the spark. Under the velvet of the moonlit sky, a whisper of stars.
Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to another Midday Madness with Manly Mark. As always, I'm your host, Manly Mark. You know, sometimes there's other folks in the pub for me, but not this week, not today. I'm excited for today's show. I've got a lot of stuff for you guys today. I'm just making sure everything is rocking and rolling, and as Fee likes to say, nickel diamond, two lime, rhyming. He's got a little metal in his knee. That's why we call him Fee. But we got a good show for you today, and appreciate you guys for tuning in. As always, I'm in the pub waiting for Jazzy J and T-Man. I don't know why they're always running late, but that's okay. Terry will just give them cold coffee and cold Frenchy fries. But just to kind of plug, you guys probably know, if you're tuning in to me, you probably tuned into us this morning at the Feast Me Show with Manly Mark. But me and Fee always have a good conversation. And so if you miss that, don't miss it tomorrow. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., the Feast Me Show with Manly Mark. You'll see me and Fee early in the morning drinking a little coffee, talking current events, news, prophecy, Bible, anything and everything. And then at noon, you'll find me here at Uncle Pat's Pub. And at night, you'll find old Fee, the Fee Bird. And at night, on his beach set at Night with Fee, where he gets into questions that the viewers send in. So if you have a question you want to ask Fee for him to talk about in detail on Night with Fee, just go to our website, feastme.com, scroll down to the bottom, and fill out that form, and Fee will set you up. So guys, thanks again for tuning in. We'll go ahead and just jump right into it. I know you guys probably prefer me to just go ahead and get into the meat of it. And so we got several different topics today. I wouldn't say that today's topic is particularly one thing, just because a lot of things kind of in the news cycle caught my eye. But kind of the first thing I saw, and of course, you know, I'm going to try to tie it together like I always do. But the first thing that caught my eye was this article from, I'm pretty sure, the New York Times. Yes. The New York Times, 100 push-ups and 50 pull-ups in under 10 minutes? What could go wrong? Fitness experts caution against jumping into a difficult routine, suggested by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Pete Hegseth. Oh no. See, the people that Trump put in his administration aren't fat potatoes and are actually pushing for our youth and our population to be healthy. And according to the New York Times, that's a bad thing. And it's like, come on now. They want us weak. They want us weak, and they want us soft. They don't want us exercise, and they don't want us to be strong. You know, and the thing is, they, you know, look at popular media for the last, 100 years. They framed it as nerd versus jock. You could either be a book nerd or a sports ball player. And, you know, I know several people who were both, but just the idea that you had to be a nerd or a jock in of itself is an attack on us, because a strong mind equates us to a strong body. A strong body makes a strong mind. You know, you can't have one without the other. And so they try to attack us there. But I just thought that was kind of silly, because it's like, man, they don't want you to be healthy. They want you to be your authentic self. And if your authentic self is just, I guess, unhealthy, then good for you. Well, and I'm not hating anyone with medical conditions who just by virtue of medical conditions can't get out and about and exercise. No, but how many people are just that way because they're that way, man? I don't know. And, you know, I can't be talking. I'm skinny. I'm too skinny. I'm skinny to a fault. Don't eat enough. And so, you know, I'm sitting here preaching, standing on my soapbox, but I'm going in reverse. But that just speaks to how, in a broader sense, they try to weaken us not only through our food, but through propaganda like that, where, oh, the current administration has people that are trying to promote being healthy and promote exercise and, in a sense, discipline, and that's supposed to be a bad thing. Which leads us to, I guess I could say that's not necessarily an attack on culture, but it's an attack on the people of America and the health of America. But now you see all over the place, and this has been going on for years and years, an attack on culture. And the latest victim to that is, as everyone knows in the news, Cracker Barrel. Our beloved Cracker Barrel. They got the meatloaf, they got the mashed potatoes, they got the chicken and dumplings, they got the fried okra. What more could a guy ask for? And not only that, I get to take my wife there and sit there with the nice little lantern, oil lantern that's so aesthetically pleasing, makes me feel fancy and old-timey. And while we're sitting there waiting for our food or biscuits and cornbread, you're looking at all the stuff on the wall. It's kind of like Uncle Pat's Pub. You come in here and you just spend the whole time looking at the different things to read on the wall, this and that, looking at the different antiques, and they're trying to take that away. Bring in modern lighting, LED, bad for your eyes, just sterile white walls. Who wants that crap? The devil? The devil wants that crap. They're taking away the individuality, but what that is an attack on culture. What did they do to Aunt Jemima? Oh, racist. What did they do to Uncle Ben? Racist. Now they're taking the cracker out of the barrel. Come on now. It's an attack on our culture, and that's not necessarily white culture, but just American culture in general, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, but we enjoy the aesthetic and the nostalgic feeling that these types of things bring, and they attack that and make it sterile and corporate looking, not only because you have idiots who actually believe these things are smart, but at the root of it, it's an attack on our culture. They're trying to erode these things that we remember fondly. And so we're going to go ahead and play just a little news clip about Cracker Barrel and how they have had to come out and issue an apology, how a lot of people aren't buying it. And then we'll show a new ad that they came out with in response. So here's the first video about Cracker Barrel.
But even the apology is getting backlash. Cracker Barrel spending $700 million on a rebranding plan that they say will turn the product from old rustic to perhaps more modern streamlined. Customers say that's just a giant helping of biscuits and bologna. They don't like it. So after a week's worth of backlash, the Tennessee-based company did put out an apology statement of sorts, which said, in part, quote, "We know we won't always get everything right the first time, but we'll keep testing, learning, and listening to our guests and employees." But the mea culpa, well, it didn't go down that well. Critics called it lame, and social media lit up with comments like these, quote, "You kicked Uncle Herschel to the curb. Now you are paying the price. Own it and stop making excuses." Another wrote, "Eating Sunday supper in a place that looks like a car dealership does not say vintage Americana." But the company's new logo, let's begin there, a simple gold shield with the restaurant's name. But gone is the image of a man affectionately called Uncle Herschel, dressed in overalls, sitting by a barrel. The company also says stores will be decluttered with fewer knickknacks on the wall, with brighter paint and booths. Critics call that soulless, sterile, and woke. Erasing heritage, they say. Another part of the apology statement, though, went on to say, look, the things people love most about our stores aren't going anywhere. Rocking chairs on the porch, a warm fire in the hearth, peg games on the table, unique treasures in our gift shop, and vintage Americana. But you know what, guys? It's not just the criticism that won't go away. The stock price for Cracker Barrel has dropped 10% since this controversy began. That translates to about $143 million in value being wiped off the books. So, yes, Cracker Barrel wants to move ahead and wants this controversy to go away, but it's not happening anytime soon. Back.
Isn't that a shame? Isn't that a shame? Oh, how the mighty have fallen. I love Cracker Barrel, man. I love Cracker Barrel. And they're taking it away. They're ruining it, making it sterile and woke, like that video said. And, just from a a cultural aspect, it's like, yeah, that sucks. I hate to say it, they're doing it to everybody, and it's going to keep coming. But on a deeper level, I think it's a deconstruction of our culture and, things we think fondly of, Americana heritage and the vintage Americana, just the knickknacks on the wall. They say it's not going anywhere, but they're taking it away, folks. And in response, they released this ad. And so, guys, here's the new Cracker Barrel ad for you.
Here at Cracker Barrel, we value diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's why we are going one step further to ruin our brand. We are investing millions of dollars into replacing all of brown pegs in the peg game to bright, colorful pegs. Also, we're changing the rules. The white pegs are not allowed to move or jump anymore, leaving the colored pegs to do whatever they want. We call it Down with the Cracker. It's about being fair in an unfair world. Are you down with the cracker?
Don't you love it, folks? Don't you love it? Oh, okay, that's clearly a parody ad. I better go ahead and say that before the NDAs and the lawsuits start coming the feast me's way. But that is just a little parody ad I saw, but it's true. And that one was more so labeled towards diversity. But it's just a shame how these companies attack the things we love in the name of diversity or equity or woke culture. But man, doing it everywhere. And that leads me on to, as I always try to tell Fee about, and you guys, the broader agenda, which is something you can find on the UN's own website. This is just the cover page for the entire document, which I'm not going to get into. I could spend a whole episode getting into it. But it leads into, like I say, it's an attack on our culture. It's an attack on our identity, whether that be white identity or American identity. Those are separate topics in and of themselves that I'm not going to get into today. But it's simply, you see this already going on, and I'll preface it before I get into it. But me and Fee kind of touched on it today. The third world invasion, the Islamic invasion of Europe, whether that be France or the UK or Sweden or Germany, you see that they're having real problems with sexual assaults, rapes, and even people converting to Islam, but just terror attacks all over the places. You have entire regions that they refer to in France as no-go zones because they've been so inundated with Islamic invaders. But the whole point of that is because of this UN agenda entitled Replacement Migration, Population Division, Department of Economic and Social Affairs, United Nations Secretariat. Just look at it, look at it, look at it, look at it, just look at it. I should have pulled up the document, but I just didn't want to because I was lazy. But you can find it on their website if you go to the un.net.gov. whatever their website is. Type in replacement migration. You'll pull up a PDF where they go into detail about how they are replacing the native populations of these European countries with third world migrants, not only to dilute the population in terms of marriage, but in terms of belief systems, but also in terms of just, there's something that the globalists don't like about European countries in terms of their individualistic nature. Now, that's not a white supremacy ideal or anything like that. It's just, there's something about European countries and their individualistic ideals that are a thorn in the side of the overall arching plan of the globalist agenda, which is a one world government. And so that when you hear the term replacement migration, they're trying to flood the first world, America, with third world migrants, whether they be Islam or even just like the South American migrants. I mean, they're, I guess, majority Catholic, but still, the whole point is to weaken these countries to push them towards globalism, which gets into their overall agenda, UN Agenda 2030, which people have known about for a long time, and I'll do a whole episode about that maybe tomorrow. But it's it's a real problem that's coming our way, and I actually want to look up, just because I saw a guy talking about it today, Mike Cernovich, who I don't know how to describe him, just a media guy, blogger, but I've been following him for years. Of course, everyone has their own controversy, this guy including, but he was specifically talking about UN Agenda 2030, and I want to just bring up kind of what he was talking about, the ways in which he was describing it, because it was very interesting. And this guy tweets so much that I've got to scroll down forever. Oh, isn't this pitiful? But I'm going to go ahead and just pull up the picture while I'm scrolling and let you guys look at the graphic. This is, what they tell you it's about. This is what they tell you the UN Agenda 2030 is about. Number 1, no poverty. Number 2, zero hunger. 3, good health and well-being. 4, quality education. 5, gender equality. I went over this the other day. 6, clean water and sanitation. 7, affordable and clean energy. 8, decent work and economic growth. 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. 10, reduced inequalities. 11, sustainable cities and communities. 12, responsible consumption and production. 13, climate action. 14, life below water. 15, life on air, life on land. 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. 17, partnerships for the goals. Sustainable development goals. Yes. UN World Agenda 2030. But this is what it's actually all about. Number 1, welfare state, severely reduced population. Yes. 2, GMO/Codex Alimentarius. I don't know what that means. Frankenstein food is what they're saying. 3, forced vaccination. 4, mass indoctrination. 5, destroy family unit. 6, water rationing. Water wars are coming. 7, smart grid surveillance. Your telephones, we're paying for surveillance, and some more surveillance is coming. Our biometric data is being mined and used to surveil. 8, TTIP/TPP. Don't know what that means, but it probably means global recession that's forced through these fake false flag epidemics and other things, and climate change. Number 9, restricted transport. They're gonna, once they actually get us off the road with all this AI cars and automated driving systems, they'll literally tell you you can and can't drive. 10, mass global migration. It's happening in Europe, happening in America. Can and can't drive. America. 11, prison cities. That's coming, your 15-minute cities. 12, planned economy coming. 13, energy rationing. You're going to see more rolling blackouts all over the nation, not just like in California or Texas. 14, control wildlife. 15, control resources. 16, perpetual oppression. 17, one world communistic government. The global goals. That's what's coming, guys. The UN's talking about it. I don't know if you saw on the little graphic. I'll actually pull it back up. This little graphic right here, that little rainbow pin, the global goals on the bottom right corner. I should have pulled it up, but I just realized that you can find pictures all over the world of these global leaders wearing this pin because they're all in agreement of this agenda. Okay? And behind this agenda is not just the UN, it's the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, who spearheaded a whole lot of COVID stuff too. But, you get in the World Economic Forum, and me and Feast Me were talking about that this morning. Klaus Schwab, who was the leader of the World Economic Forum for a very long time, has been replaced by the CEO, by the CEO top dog of BlackRock. And if anyone is listening to me, then they know how BlackRock is the largest asset holder in the world, and how they're behind, they own everything. Shady organization, and even get behind the symbolism of BlackRock. Okay, the symbolism of BlackRock. Think BlackRock and Mecca, Cube, Saturn, BlackRock all over the place. It's a cult symbology. That's what it is. But this video I'm about to show you specifically gets into BlackRock's ties into now what is the World Economic Forum, which is tied into this UN Agenda 2030, which then the parts where you hear about is just all this propaganda that you're going to hear about climate change, carbon tax, all those things is all part of this agenda, and you're affected by the propaganda, even if you just don't realize it yet. So listen to this.
Absolutely. And I want to move now to an update on the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab stepped down. We had the Nestle guy who believed that water wasn't a human right. He stepped in as the co-chair, and now he's gone. We have somebody else moving in there. The world's largest asset manager is BlackRock, and this is Larry Fink, who runs BlackRock and manages almost $12 trillion of assets in 2024. And where does he point those assets? Where does he wield his power? Well, this is just one interview with Larry Fink. Take a listen.
The faster that we could find ways to mitigating the rising temperatures, I would say the more just society could be. And so to me, it's we don't have much time. We need to be learning about these the new technologies and how to move forward. And we need to then inform our investors ultimately where we think the next opportunities are going to be too. And as Bill in his book wrote about, we need to employ $50 trillion to get to a green world.
$50 trillion of taxpayer money towards an absolute disastrous hoax that only makes us richer. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, Jeffrey? We just have the guy that is managing probably your home loan, your bank account, your automobile company that built your cars. I mean, BlackRock has got its fingers in everything, and now he's just the head of the WEF. What could possibly go wrong?
Anybody who hatches a scheme that has Bill Gates laughing like a Scooby-Doo villain should really alarm people at that point. Totally. So again, we're hearing this. We're hearing these words. This is rapid net zero push. There's not much time. It's up to us for a just society. You know, the trillionaire class. And he says, we're going to inform our investors. There's this really gobbledygook talk of it's just going to be touchy-feely. We're going to just suggest to them how to reshape society. Well, how is that suggested? Here's one of Larry Fink's comments. BlackRock's CEO slammed for forced behaviors. His comment in 2017, he was talking about the DEI initiatives, but he says this, quote, behaviors are going to have to change. And this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors. At BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors. That's Larry Fink. And so let's look at how they kind of shape the market. So they're talking about informing their investors. This is Andrew Bailey, again, out of Missouri. A lot of great things that are happening in Missouri. Attorney General Andrew Bailey filed suit against BlackRock, also State Street and Vanguard, for illegally manipulating the energy markets. And he said this in his press release. Over several years, the three asset managers acquired substantial stock holdings in every significant publicly held coal producer in the United States, thereby gaining the power to control the policies of the coal companies. Using their combined influence over the coal market, the investment cartel collectively announced in 2021 their commitment to weaponize their shares to pressure the coal companies to accommodate green energy goals. So basically, our cartel wants you to do this, and you do this or you go out of business because we're going to put you out of business. That's how Larry Fink is moving. So yeah, I bring up these conversations because a lot of people are looking at the Department of Energy, President Trump, and saying, well, we have a little bit of a pause here, respite. We have brakes on this massive climate push that's reshaping society. Yeah. And we have, it's not what's happening in the rest of the world. It's not what's happening with the largest asset managers in the world. This is going full speed ahead. And as a side note to that, we have Andrew Bailey. He has recently stepped down just as of days ago from the Missouri AG position. And he's going into the FBI as a co-deputy director. This is, I believe, actually great news because that's a power position now. This is somebody who sued China for $25 billion for their response to the COVID disaster. He also sued the Biden administration for their censorship regime. So this guy is a heavy hitter. Now he's kind of installed at one of the top positions at the FBI.
So as you can see, it's like, oh, the largest asset holder in the world, BlackRock, the guy who runs BlackRock, now runs the World Economic Forum, which is concerning itself with this UN Agenda 2030, which is essentially global communism. But he, who controls the company that's the largest asset holder in the world, isn't going to be held to this global communistic government, this global communistic way of living. He'll be exempt. because he's in this club that we're not a part of. And, I mentioned a moment ago specifically about this UN Agenda 2030, which on the surface, because we have Trump now, you don't see it push down our throats as much, and it's never pushed down our throats as blatantly as I'm explaining it now, because you just hear about, climate this, climate that. When you hear talk about that, this is what it's all talking about. But this guy, Mike Cernovich, was talking to Grok, and so I'll read his conversation with Grok just to kind of put a twist on what, more into what's really going on under the surface with this UN Agenda 2030. He says, "Hi, Grok. Could you please provide us with some examples of powerful and or wealthy people citing 2030 as a milestone for humanity, as well as do your best to explain the numerology and occult symbolism contained in 2030. Okay, scrolling down. Examples of power. This is Grok. Example of powerful figures citing 2030 as milestone. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres references the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, aiming to end poverty and promote sustainability. Ray Kurzweil predicts the technological singularity around 2030, transforming humanity via AI. Okay. Bill Gates discusses achieving UN SDGs by sustainable development goals by 2030 for global health and equity. Numerology. 2 plus 0 plus 3 plus 0 equals 5, symbolizing change, freedom, adventure. As an angel number, it combines 2, harmony, 0, potential, twice for emphasis, 3, creativity, suggesting growth and exploration. Occult symbolism. Some interpret it as a signifying transformation or new era tied to esoteric ideas of infinity, 0, and evolution, though interpretations vary widely. Then Cernovich asks, what would be the dark, demonic, or anti-human reading of the numbers 2030? And this is Grok again. In numerology, a dark reading of 2030, summing to 5, could emphasize instability, 2 as a division/conflict, dual, zeros as void or spiritual emptiness, 3 as chaotic disruption, potentially symbolizing humanity's unraveling or loss of freedom. In occult circles, some tie it to Agenda 2030 conspiracies, viewing it as a satanic timeline for control, transhumanism, or depopulation, or evoking anti-human forces like the Antichrist or New World Order. These are speculative views, interpretations vary widely. Okay, he says, I agree it's speculation. I don't personally follow numerology or buy crystals, despite living in California, but many powerful and wealthy elites deem 2030 as having some significance. It can't be a coincidence. They are revealing their religious views in plain sight. Now Grok says, many elites align with 2030 due to frameworks like the UN Sustainable Development Goals, set in 2015 for a 15-year horizon. Practical planning rather than pure coincidence. Some esoteric views see 2030 as evoking cycles of renewal. If it's religious signaling, it might not nod to the globalists' unity ideas, but evidence is interpretive. He then goes on, okay, but it essentially goes on, his conversation, to get into more so specifically the World Economic Forum. So if you guys have X, go find Cernovich out there and read the whole conversation because it's very telling. But even the symbology behind this whole UN Agenda 2030 is dark and occultic in of itself, which is always going on the undercurrent. Now, whether or not this UN Agenda 2030 leads to the coming of the Antichrist, who knows? Or whether or not we're actually subjugated completely by 2030, again, who knows? I don't know. I think we're, in a sense, already subjugated by our telephones or by our cell phones. They've already got us subjugated to this thing. But whether or not it's as dystopic as that Yuval Harari guy says, which I think he's a smart guy. He knows what's coming. I don't know if it's going to come that quick, or as Fee says, if we'll even be here that quick. But I definitely think it ties to the end times, in a sense, because at the same time that all this is going on, you see all these moves being made in Israel, with the red heifer ceremony, with the talk about the building of the third temple. And it really leads you down a rabbit hole to start questioning, well, who is behind a lot of these United Nations directives? Who's behind a lot of these World Economic Forums, who's in a lot of these key positions, and what are a lot of their loyalties, you know? And I think it ties into something that Fee's been calling for a long time. He's been talking about the West Bank, and the West Bank's been in the news a lot lately. And so this video I'm about to show you right now is, and I'll get into how it ties into who's pulling the strings in the world, of course, as I always do. But I want to read the headline specifically for this video I'm about to show you. Yes. It's essentially panic in Ramallah, West Bank. Israeli forces stormed the city today, imposing a full siege and arresting over 100 people, from 8-year-old children to 80-year-old men. People were kidnapped, shops raided, elderly beaten, and streets sealed. Interesting. Let's look at that. So I just thought that was interesting that you see panic happening in the West Bank because as Fee's been talking about on his show for all the shows for a while, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what's happening in the West Bank, because I'm pretty sure that's the spot he says where if they start giving up land in the West Bank, then that's when a lot of trouble is going to start happening. And I even found this video because there's just people, Palestinians, living in the West Bank, and you have these Jewish settlers who are, I don't know, for all intents and purposes, encroaching upon the West Bank. And this video even came out in 2025. It's recent enough to be within this year, but this is just an example of what's stuff you see every day in the West Bank, apparently. And so, you know, you even have these attackers or these settlers who are moving into the West Bank, Israeli settlers, and attacking the Palestinians and trying to drive them out. And I had another video of a leader of one of these Palestinian towns. I guess I didn't pull it up. Oh, did I not? Let me see real quick if I can find it. If not, that's okay. But she's essentially explaining, you know, that it's their right to do so. It's their right to pull these people out. Panic in the West Bank, attackers. Let me just make sure, because I don't want. No, I guess I just didn't even save it. Isn't that a shame? Isn't that a shame? Well, you know, it's okay. Anyways, back at you. It's essentially a video of a female leader of one of these Israeli settlements describing how they're going to take the West Bank and they're going to take more. Israel is. And I think this stuff that you see right now coming out of Lebanon, Lindsey Graham just gave a speech talking about Lebanon and how he wants more religious diversity in the Middle East. And so it's very interesting that you see the Israeli settlements, you know, they're essentially annexed the West Bank. They're going to take it over, probably kick all the Palestinians out of there sooner than later. But it's very interesting now that they're talking about Lebanon, because I think it lends to this idea that's prevalent and this idea that's coming. It's been bubbling under the surface, been talked about for a long time, and I think it ties directly to this World Economic Forum, United Nations, what's happening on an even broader sense. But so let's just listen to Lindsey Graham, what he's talking about, and then I'll comment on it.
Well, I'll let these two guys talk about the economic. It's to make sure that people have the capability to feed their family and, you know, secure the area that's in question. If you take a contested area and make it stable, that's good for Lebanon, that's good for Israel. I think President Trump, through Tom and Morgan, have a plan to create stability along the border. I'll let them talk about that. But the one thing I forgot to mention is a defense agreement. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the biggest change in the history of Lebanon. And why am I talking about it? How many nations have a defense agreement with the United States? Very few. NATO, we have Article 5 commitment, but the number of nations that America is willing to go to war for is very few. Why did I mention Lebanon being in that group? You have one thing going for you that is very valuable to me, religious diversity. Christianity is under siege in the Mideast. Christians are being slaughtered and run out of all over the region, except here. And so what I am going to tell my colleagues, and Gene has been great, why don't we invest in defending religious diversity in the Mideast? Why don't we have a relationship with Lebanon where we would actually defend what you're doing? I think it's in America's interest to defend religious diversity, whether you're Druze or Alawite or a Christian or whatever. The idea that America may one day have a defense agreement with Lebanon changes Lebanon unlike any single thing I could think of. And why am I pushing this idea? Because I want to defend religious diversity. I want those who want to destroy religious diversity to understand your days are numbered.
Thank you.
Folks, I hate to tell you, but if Lindsey Graham's got his hands in the cookie jar of your country telling you he wants to bring religious diversity to your country, religious diversity means LGBTQ propaganda. Religious diversity means free abortions for the youth of your nation. That's what he's trying to push. Not only that, but there's this idea that at some point Israel might take over Lebanon. Israel doesn't even consider Lebanon and places like Jordan real countries. What do you mean, Manly? Well, I talked about the other day, and I talk about often with Fee, this idea of the Greater Israel Project. It's an idea that's, again, bubbling under the surface that you don't ever hear about, but I think it ties into this whole red heifer, this whole rebuilding of the Third Temple, and in a broader sense, this United Nations World Economic Forum that's going to be a system of control over humanity. And so we talked about Greater Israel, but here's just a brief overview, again, of the Greater Israel Project and what it means.
You may have seen this image online of an Israeli soldier wearing a Greater Israel badge. This left many asking, is Israel trying to expand its territory by taking land from other countries? Even recent statements from Israeli authorities suggest that this could be the case. Take Israel's Minister of Diaspora Affairs, for example. He declared that Lebanon, despite its flag and political institutions, is merely an entity rather than a true state. He even argues that these nations fail to meet the criteria of legitimate states. Last year, Bezalel Smotrich, leader of a religious Zionist party, presented a map that included occupied West Bank and parts of Jordan as Israel. This bold claim sparked outrage from Amman and raised serious questions about Israel's territorial aspirations. In what many people online are calling a land grab, Greater Israel refers to a Zionist belief in a historic biblical land that spans from the Nile all the way to the Euphrates. Here's what Daniela Weiss, a leader of an illegal settlement, had to say about that.
I want to have for the Jewish nation the promised land from the Bible, from the
Yes.
to the Nile. And I'm sure it will be.
What about southern Lebanon?
If it is part of it, all of it, even parts of Syria, part of Iraq, part of Iran. It's huge.
Given all this information, is Israel acting in self-defense, or is there a wider regional plan?
Hate to tell you, folks, but it's a wider regional plan. That's the point. It's been a wider regional plan since 1948, and before, I'd say since before the 1800s or before. But the point is, they do all these military actions and call it self-defense, but this is what's really under the surface and what their goal and aspirations are. And then you have Lindsey Graham talking about wanting to promote religious diversity in Lebanon. But Lindsey Graham, who's the staunchest supporter of Israel, would probably bend the knee the second Israel said, this isn't a legitimate state. Lindsey Graham would say, "Oh, well, we got the foothold in there, so yeah, go ahead and it's yours. It's yours." I mean, these people claim to be America's friends, but they're not. They pull the strings of America. They pull the strings, and I don't mean that in an anti-Semitic sense. It's just, how is it that these foreign governments have this much control over America? And here's a video specifically of our boy Benjamin Netanyahu talking about how easy it is to control in America, even back from 2001. And you're just like, And again, a lot of evangelical Americans would say, yeah, they should control America. They have our best interests at heart. And they really don't. They really don't, folks. And I think we're going to find that out sooner than later. But here's just this video of Netanyahu and his view on how easy it is to manipulate America.
שהמחיר יהיה כבד מצוא, כרגע המחיר לא כבד מצוא, על התקפה רבת היקף על הרשות הפלסטינית. כרגע לפחד שהכל מתמוטט.
לא פוחדים, צוחקים להם, יראו לנו לתוך הישר וצחוק ופשוט הם לא פוחדים.
זה מה שמביא אותם
ואז רגע, אבל אז השוק מהעולם יגיד מה אתם כובשים? אתה לא מפחד מהעולם, ביבי.
במיוחד היום עם אמריקה, אני יודע מה זה אמריקה. אמריקה זה לא שאפשר להזיז אותו בקלות, להזיז לכיוון הנכון. לא יכניעו לנו.
אז אם אנחנו עושים לזה משהו, אז הם...
יש עליה, נניח שהם אומרים משהו. 80% מהאמריקאים תומכים בנו. זה אבסורד. לא פחדתי לתמד שם. לא פחדתי להתאבד עם קלינטון. לא פחדתי להתאבד עם אובמה. מה היו הסכמי אוסלו? הסכמי אוסלו שהכנסת חתמה עליהם. שאלו אותי לפני הבחירות, נקיים בתנאי כפוף לזה.
That's essentially all play of that video, but it's just how he said how easily it is to move America. And that's the point. You hear politicians get on there like Lindsey Graham and essentially do Israel's bidding under the guise of America, or Ted Cruz going on Tucker and saying, well, Tucker, don't you know the Bible says if you curse Israel, you'll be cursed, and if you bless Israel, you'll be cursed. Well, Ted Cruz, where is that at in the Bible? You know, don't you? No, I don't, because it's not in the Bible. Those promises were to Abram, and the seed in which those promises are to is Christ, and those in Christ. That's the point, and that's the deception that we're all falling for. The deception we're all falling for. And you say, okay, Manly, how does that all tie into the World Economic Forum? How does it all tie into what's going on? Well, this is how I think it does. But not only, I'll play this video from a guy that we all know and love, Mike Huckabee, who is the ambassador to Israel currently. At this latest, I don't know if you call it press conference, but the caption of this video when I downloaded it was, oh, I couldn't believe it wasn't AI. But just listen to this video, just to give you a clear understanding of who it is who controls America, and how it is that Mike Huckabee isn't even really sure why it is that they do. Just that if you're on God's team, then you're going to do what Israel says and what's best for Israel. Just listen to this video, and I'm not even trying to be mean or hateful. It's just like, America first. Come on.
The ambassador has a very interesting view of anti-Semitism. Yeah. Rosh Yeshiva grew up in America. There was anti-Semitism, of course. And I've experienced it, we've all experienced it. The ambassador has a very interesting view of that. He says you can't understand anti-Semitism. If the people who are anti-Semitic, it's because they're against God, they're against the Rabbi Shalom. And we are represented as his people, and that's why they're anti-Semitic. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Interesting view.
It's an interesting view. There's another view that since we consider the chosen people, so people are very. Who are you? What are you? Where are you taking big shots? Chosen people.
And that's part of it. Is that because you are the chosen people, given a chosen place, for a chosen purpose. And if someone is angry at God, he'll be angry at the people who represent him.
That's right.
So I tell people anti-Semitism is irrational. There's no reason for it unless you understand the spiritual reason, which is what I believe is at the heart of it. It is not the left versus the right. It is good versus evil. It is the Creator versus those who rebel against the Creator.
Don't you see how awkward Mike Huckabee is right there? He feels awkward, but notice how he instantly frames it as, I mean, we don't condone anti-Semitism here at the Feast Me Network, but how he instantly condones the being against the people of God as being against God, good versus evil. Well, who are the people of God? Those who are in apostasy to him? What benefit is being the chosen people? Listen to as Mike Huckabee, our ambassador, the United States grovels to the chosen ones. What benefit is that in today's time if you rejected Christ? I don't know. And that's not trying to be a mean statement against the Jews or Israel, but it's this mentality that's leading our disposition, not only as evangelical Christians in a broad sense, but as a nation. And as I say often, wide is the gate, narrow is the path. Yeah, majority of the world is turning against Zionism, against Israel. On one hand, you're going to see the Antichrist rise up out of that. And then on the other hand, you have those who are bent and determined to stay with this supposedly evil regime that I don't want to be a part of either. But you're accused of going against God if you question it. And that's the thing that I think is part of the deception. And now how would I tie this to how I think that this is going to be part of, okay, you talk about how Huckabee said, given a purpose by God, which was to bring about Christ, which is they did. That was the purpose. That was the purpose. Given a place, Israel, but in which they've never actually had the borders of the greater Israel, right? So you have the whole greater Israel project working in the background. You have the fact that they're trying to build the third temple. They truly believe that, I should have showed the video of that rabbi telling Netanyahu to hurry up and get the Messiah here. Well, they believe once they build this third temple, once they have the biblical borders of Israel taken by their own means, whether it's given to them by God or not, that they will bring about their Messiah. And when that happens, they believe that their Messiah will be the leader of the world on a worldwide government, and that we will be like cattle to them. Okay, very interesting. And I'm going to have to actually look this up because I didn't plan on showing it, but it's a letter from the Sanhedrin. I'll show it to you guys just a moment. It's a letter to the Sanhedrin. Let me type it in. Letter to Trump from Sanhedrin. Don't worry, guys. I'm going to pull it up for you. We get back over here and add a window caption. I know this is clunky, but I want you guys to see this. Okay. I just want you guys to see where I'm at, what I'm pulling up, just because I want you to see how accessible this is, because I think it's very important to keep in mind this kind of thing is working in the background of, Third Temple, Greater Israel Project. Okay, let me go back there. I see that we're on the correct window. Go back to my page. Urgent, we're going to sanhedrin.org. Okay, urgent important announcements. We want letter from the nascent Sanhedrin to President Donald J. Trump. Let me make sure you guys are still seeing this. Yes, you are. Great. Let me just read it because I think it's important that you guys know this is happening. Jerusalem Court for Issues of Ben Noah. Letter from the nascent Sanhedrin to President Donald J. Trump, Jerusalem. Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. Dear Honorable Honorable President Donald Trump. May Hashem the Creator bless you and your nation. We extend our heartfelt gratitude for bringing faith to the forefront of the American and global culture through the establishment of the Faith Office in the White House. Your recognition of the importance of religion in public life is a step toward restoring moral values and spiritual leadership in the world. And the letter gets into the Universal Moral Code. The book of Genesis has a profound message of unity and divine purpose for humanity through three fundamental principles. One God, to recognize the cause of all causes. Two, one first man, to affirm the basic equal rights of humanity. One basic law, to establish universal principles of justice. Without a constructive moral framework, humanity descends into violence and destruction, as exemplified by Cain's murder of Abel. Every nation has unique strengths and resources, yet no nation is self-sufficient. Without a universal ethical common code, people resort to war and oppression to obtain what they need. With such a code, nations engage in spiritual commerce and a race for virtue. Very important right here. The first commandment and 7 laws of Noah. The first time the word commandment appears in the Bible is when Hashem, that means God, commanded Adam. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree in the garden you may eat freely. The verse alludes to the 7 universal laws that form the foundation of ethical behavior for all of humanity. These laws reflect 7 of the 10 commandments. I'm going to skip down. It gets into the roles of ethics in business. A businessman who commits to being honest and good in the eyes of Hashem will seek trustworthy partners. The Cyrus Trump coin. In 2017, the nascent Sanhedrin minted a special coin featuring your image, Trump, on one side and Cyrus the Great. This symbolized your historic role, likened to that of Cyrus, who was chosen by Hashem to fulfill a divine mission. Very interesting. And this is a very important part of the letter right here. A call to establishment in an international divine court. We invite you to meet with the Sanhedrin court rabbis in Jerusalem to discuss the establishment of an international divine court for all nations. This court would be based on the 7, very important, listen, the 7 universal commandments given to Noah and reaffirmed at Mount Sinai. A foundation for global peace and divine justice. May Hashem bless you with wisdom, strength, and success in your mission. And then goes on signing the rabbis. But this is, oh my goodness, folks, this is very spooky. Okay, so essentially Trump had a letter from the Sanhedrin in Jerusalem calling for an international divine court in which the 7 Noahide laws would be the rule. Okay, well, you say, what are the 7 Noahide laws? They got into it in the letter. Again, this was a real letter you can find on sanhedrin.org to Trump. Trump's very privy to Israel. He kissed the wall. They all kiss the wall. They all wear the little hat and kiss the wall. I mean, listen to Huckabee, the way he just grovels to them. It's like, whoa, what's going on there? But, you have what's going on with the World Economic Forum. You have what's going on with the United Nations and how, at some point, they're trying to establish a one world government, a one world, system of control. Okay, on the undercurrents, you have in Israel the rebuilding of their third temple going on. You have this Greater Israel project going on. You have these rabbis saying their Messiah is right around the corner. We have to bring about these things so that our Messiah will come and rule the world. And you have this letter from the Sanhedrin to Trump outlining how there needs to be an international divine court in Jerusalem in which the 7 Noahide laws are the law of the land. And just to get into a little bit more of the Noahide laws before we close out, I'm going to give a video to explain it a little better.
According to Jewish tradition, there are 7 ancient laws which serve as the basis for civilized society. I'll list them in the description below. These laws are seen as applying universally to all of humanity, not just Jews. They're called the Noahide laws because tradition says they were given in their fullness to Noah after the flood. Now, according to Judaism, Gentiles don't have to keep the law of Moses, but they are required to keep the Noahide laws. And a non-Jew who keeps them is considered a righteous Gentile, or simply a Noahide. Now, are these laws found in the Bible? Well, not as a list, and certainly not as given to Noah. This is actually an idea that comes from the Talmud, not Scripture. The first 6 laws come from different parts of the Bible, but the 7th doesn't. So Christianity doesn't recognize the extra-biblical concept of the Noahide laws per se, but we certainly recognize any command as important where it aligns with Scripture.
So just a little background on these Noahide laws and how the idea of the Noahide laws in of themselves are found in Jewish tradition, in that a Gentile who keeps these laws are a Noahide, a good Gentile. But the point is, if you read more into the Noahide laws, it gets into how essentially punishment for breaking these commandments is death, beheading. Okay, well, the first commandment in the Noahide laws was essentially recognize that there's one God. Okay, very interesting. Yeah, we think that we recognize one God, you know, the Trinity, who is one God, 3 persons in one. But according to Judaism, that's idolatry because we're worshiping 3 distinct gods. Oh, so right off the bat, Christianity would be punishable by death under these Noahide laws. So tie that into the UN Agenda 2030, the system of complete control and subjugation, worldwide communism they want to put us under. Tie that into how the attack on our culture and how they're flooding the world with migrants, the first world with migrants, to essentially further their control. Tie that into the Greater Israel Project, the rebuilding the Third Temple, and the Noahide laws, and the coming of their Messiah. Woo! Well, you got a recipe for some Left Behind stuff coming on now. Woo-hoo! And guys, I mean, do I necessarily think that in the end times, the real end times, it's going to be a Jewish Messiah out of a Greater Israel? I don't know. Maybe. It might be a Vatican-based Antichrist. It might be an Islamic Antichrist. It might be an alien Antichrist, an atheistic Antichrist. The point is that deception is everywhere, and you just need to at least be aware that there are these things working in the undercurrent, and whether or not they are the final fruition of what's to come. I don't know. I'm just here asking questions, hoping I'm not deceived, and in return, hoping you guys aren't deceived. So guys, thank you for stopping in at Uncle Pat's Pub today. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. I did, as always. And guys, don't forget to tune in to Night Night with Fee tonight at 9. Go to our website, feastme.com, and send in those emails. As always, guys, God bless you, and thank you.